And we are here for chapter 18. 2 more chapters left. This one and then the next one. Hey, it's almost this date that it mentions here. I should save it. I'm not going to. Alright, anyway. Chapter 18. My friends. Today is June 14th, Flag Day. It's also graduation day for Cranston High. I'm graduating high school. This is the day I've been waiting for years for. The day when I can start to make my own plans and decide where I will live and for how long. No more moving whenever Dad changes jobs. No more being the new guy. At least, not like being the new guy in public school. I'll go to college and be new, but so will everyone else in my classes, mostly. I'll be just like them. Except for the fact that I'm a zombie, or zombie orphan now, which is why this day isn't so important anymore. I've been able to go wherever and do whatever I've wanted to for several months now. But knowing it is important to finish what I start, I stuck around Cranston to see high school through. Okay. Almost 5 months have passed since the fire, since I lost my parents, and my own life too. I'm doing remarkably well for someone who had lost his life. Obviously, I lied about what happened at the Suttons' house. So far, none of the Suttons have shown up. No bodies were recovered from the fire, except for Frank. They declared everyone dead in the fire, everyone being Tom, Arlene, and Rachel. There was some surprise over my being there when they had only 2 days earlier declared me dead with my parents in a vehicle accident. I'm not sure how this worked with the story the Suttons cooked up about the accident, but they couldn't argue with the fact that I was standing there in front of them. It's not like I could have come back from the dead, right? That's what I asked. That's what I asked them. They took my word for it. I gave them the story that I had been over to the Suttons' house for dinner that Wednesday night, after which I took ill. Dr. Sutton decided to keep me there to care for me. I was barely conscious for 2 days with the illness, and when I was just getting back to normal, the house was on fire. This allowed me to be vague on who was at the house and any other important details. Happily, they didn't push for anything more. Partly, I assumed, because they realized that if I had been unconsciously ill for a few days, I didn't know that my parents were dead. The sheriff took it upon himself to break the bad news to me. I responded honestly, and truly did grieve the death of my parents. Inwardly, I knew they were murdered, but to keep up appearances, I went along with the car accident story. My aunt had come into town to handle all the legal and property issues for my parents. She arrived Saturday morning in Cranston and went to the house. The sheriff brought me there after a brief interview out at the Suttons. I say aunt, I don't know why I said aunt before. My aunt nearly passed out when she saw me, being under the belief that I was dead too. It was traumatic for her, but after a bit she calmed down. We spent the next week with the funeral, going through everything in the house, conversations with lawyers, graciously provided by the company my dad had been working for, and establishing me as a legal adult. It worked out so that I could keep the house, at least at the end of high school. I don't know how it worked out, but it did. And 2 weeks after my first day of school at Cranston High, I completed my fourth day of school there. The return to school was very strange, to say the least, but I adjusted. It got around that I had been at the Suttons' house for a few days before the fire, then the fact that they never recovered any bodies from the scene, and the Suttons haven't been seen or heard from since. So with me being the only survivor, having just come out of some sort of coma, let's just say there was suspicion and talking. There still is. Trent and his crew warmed up to me after a few weeks, but it wasn't quite the same as when I first got into town. They already thought the Suttons were strange before the house fire and disappearance. They said it wasn't too out of the ordinary not to recover the bodies after such a fire, but I had told Jack, the neighbor, that one of the cars was missing, and that made its way into the police report and then into the gossip stream. Since no Suttons ever showed up at any of the area hospitals or have been seen in Cranston since, it's all very suspicious. I didn't play baseball. Trent didn't push the issue with me. Maybe I should have played. I might have actually been able to keep up with my zombie endurance. Of course, the pre-sports physical would likely have weeded me out. I still can't believe they didn't force me to see an EMT at the fire. That would have raised a few eyebrows. What I believe happened was Tom and Arlene and possibly Mark went after some important information, either in the lab or somewhere else, and then were trapped inside. Or they just never made it down the stairs. Rachel must have lit the fire and then lit out in the car, never looking back. Who knows where she ended up? She didn't seem thrilled about taking off on her own, but I guess she managed. Sometimes I miss her, but then I remember that she's a zombie, and I think about everything her family did to me, and I don't miss her anymore. Even a 17-year-old boy can see past a pretty face in this situation. A 17-year-old zombie boy, that is. The graduation ceremony is being held on the football field at the school. I need to be there in 40 minutes for our last rehearsal. The actual ceremony will be later this afternoon. I get to sit on the stage as I wound up being the valedictorian. Having no family and not needing to sleep proved to be helpful for improving my study habits. It didn't hurt that for the most part all of the other kids avoided me. I've heard the rumors, and they aren't friendly towards me, but I don't care. In a few more weeks, Cranston will be nothing but a bad memory. A really bad memory. Someone is knocking at the door. I peek out my bedroom window. I can't see the front door from here, but I can see most of the driveway and the road in front of the house. No cars, no people. Another knock. I cinch up the tie I'm tying and head for the front door. I open it and no one is there, but an envelope is lying on the step outside. I look all around before picking up the envelope. No one in sight. All right, I've seen this on TV. No one is so fast they can simply disappear during the time it took me to get from the bedroom to the front door. Barefoot, I sprint for the left side of the house past the garage. No one. Next, I break for the other side of the house. Still no one. Shoving the envelope into my pants pocket, I run for the backyard. No one here either. I walk along the back of the house, checking windows and the door for any signs of tampering. I even look underneath the overturned trash barrel in case someone is hiding under it like a cartoon character. Nothing. There aren't any fences or large plants where someone could be hiding back here. I finish my circuit of the house and go back inside, locking the door behind me. Whoever dropped off the letter must have run and hid behind another house. Rather odd behavior, I'd say. I jump over the back of the couch that sits perpendicular to the door and lie flat to read the paper I pulled from the envelope. Eric, you have performed miraculously these last few months. We are so proud of you. You truly have come to appreciate your new life. We knew you would. We look forward to reuniting with you after your graduation. It is regrettable how things turned out at our separation, but all's well that ends well, and this is going to end well. Don't worry about finding us. We'll find you and fill you in on all the details. See you soon. Arlene, Tom, and Rachel. P.S. Congratulations on being valedictorian. If I wasn't a zombie, I'd likely do one of those shutter things and be entirely creeped out. But I am a zombie, so I'm not especially affected by this letter, and the mysterious delivery no longer bothers me either. I've developed a sort of apathy towards danger these 5 months since the event. It is a bit of a letdown to know the Suttons are still alive and well. I was content with the thought of Rachel being out there somewhere, but not the mad scientist and her secret agent husband. I hoped Rachel would be fine, but I don't define fine as being with her parents. This is slightly confusing and very interesting. I'll worry about it all later, though. For now, I have a valedictory. I'll worry about it all later, though. For now, I have a valedictory speech to deliver. Words are so difficult. I'm just gonna take a break and read a text message, and I'll get back to the story. All right. Today was hot. The ceremony was miserable for the heat. Luckily, it's such a small class that the whole process wasn't much more than an hour long. Without any meaningful friendships, I didn't have to stick around for hugs and photographs. I shook a few hands on my way to the parking lot and then returned home. I'm now waiting in the living room with the front door wide open. If they wanted to hurt me, they wouldn't have left the letter, so I see no point in hiding. Back-to-back superhero movies on cable pass before the Suttons show up. I don't hear a car or anything else until a voice from someone in the room with me. Eric, you look well. It's Dr. Sutton. She is standing in the doorway. Thanks. Come on in. Where's the rest of the family? I ask. We're here, says Tom as he enters with Rachel a few steps behind. Great. It's been a few months. I wasn't sure if you made it out of the house or not, I say. We did. Thank you for your concern, says Dr. Sutton, full of false sincerity. We both know I wanted her to die in that fire. If I wasn't so curious about what they've been up to since then, I might have tried catching them in a trap tonight to finish the job. Maybe it's the loss of humanity, or maybe it's the sheer isolation, socially speaking. But I don't care as much about the threat the Suttons pose as I used to, and will sacrifice public safety a little in order to indulge my curiosity. Plus, I've got to find out about Rachel. Well, come in, everyone. Have a seat. Can I get anything for anyone? I say and stand up. All three come in and sit down together on the sofa. I pull in a chair from the kitchen and sit directly in front of them, a comfortable distance away. Once seated, I look at Rachel, and she looks back at me with hollow eyes. No one says a word. So what's up? I say to get things going. We just came here to see how things were going for you and to congratulate you on finishing high school, Dr. Sutton says. Thanks. Where did you go? I ask. Well, after you so thoroughly destroyed our operation here, we had to set up new quarters elsewhere. Initially, we spent some time with another group doing the same thing we were doing here, preparing. Preparing for what? Asked the doctor. Another group? For the release, of course. The release of humankind from the bondage of mortality, she answers. What? Oh, right, death, I say. Tom rolls his eyes. Dr. Sutton gives an exasperated huff, and Rachel almost looks like she is going to smile. Seeing her with them, I immediately think she's on their side, but maybe not. Cranston hasn't been our only project, Eric. We have family members in several other locations. The operation is bigger than you have probably imagined. This isn't just an errant group of scientists, as you have likely conceptualized it. We were one sanctioned group. We were the first, of course, because the initial exposure was accidental and well ahead of schedule. But the results were hopeful, so we entered phase 2, Dr. Sutton says. Phase 2? Who's behind this project? Who are the other groups? I ask. Tom joins in the discussion. Eric, you aren't stupid, but you are trusting, and in this case the two are mostly the same. We lied, Eric. You weren't the first human trial we did with our improved virus. You've turned out to be our most disagreeable, But you weren't the first. Well, not the first overall. You were the first for us, Dr. Sutton says. After we made it through a few months successfully, the agency set up similar installations across the country and staffed them with scientists living covertly in the same way we were. Those scientists received the first strain we created. You received version 2. The agency. What is the agency? Can you explain that to me? I never asked before, but this is some crazy stuff. How can something like this exist in the US? I ask. Maybe you are stupid, Eric, Tom says. I can see you are still a little defiant, Eric. We came to invite you to participate in our mission and help us build a supply of the virus. But perhaps you aren't ready for that yet, Dr. Sutton says. I don't respond right away. This is worse than I'd ever suspected, and I am powerless to stop it. You want me to help you grow the virus. I'm not a biologist or chemist or even mad scientist of any kind. I don't think I would be able to help, even if I wanted to, I say. And I don't, I add, just to make sure they realize it. We gathered that, Tom says. We don't grow the virus, Eric. We are the virus. Our blood is all we need to transmit the virus to another person. We would provide you with a freezer and phlebotomy equipment. All you would need to do is draw a few milliliters of blood twice a month and freeze it. Our blood doesn't replace very quickly, but it does, given enough time. Essentially, a few tablespoons a month is all we can spare, but it is sufficient. And even though it seems slow, it is still more efficient than trying to replicate the virus in the lab. We didn't expect you'd be sticking around Cranston now that high school is over, but if you let us know your destination, we would make sure you were comfortable. We take care of our family members. You wouldn't want for anything. But if you aren't interested in participating, Dr. Sutton explains. Why? I ask. You keep asking that one, Tom says. This is the future. We have made you as close to immortal as any human has ever been. We are the future of the human race, just like we talked about a few months ago, except once again, we didn't give you the full story. I'm still with the agency. Arlene is still with the CDC. Everything we are doing is sanctioned and supported by the government. You proved to be a good test case for us because you actually fought back. You were the first to do that, and it kind of shook up our whole operation. But now we know a little more what to expect when we go all out. Dr. Sutton takes over. Of course, we still aren't ready to go all out just yet. We need more virus and more locations. We want the transmission to be as expansive as possible in order to prevent any kind of organized rebellion. We don't want anything like what you tried to mount against us in January, but on a larger scale. Did she did she single me out as the instigator because she doesn't know Rachel was involved, or because they have decided to just pin it on me alone and forgive Rachel's involvement? I look at Rachel, whose eyes haven't left me since we sat down, but she reveals nothing to me. Tom thinks I'm stupid and too trusting. We'll see who the stupid one is. I see. I'm asking these questions because I want to know the real story. I figured that you told me back then I figured what you told me back then wasn't the full truth, and as I've had time to think about this for a few months, and now I have come to the conclusion that living this way isn't that much different than how it was before. I'm no longer Eric Sterling, but I'm a close shadow copy of him. And that's not too bad, right? I still don't know if I support the universal transition you are working towards, but what's the harm in saving some of my blood for you each month, especially if you're paying me? It isn't that we'll be paying you, but there will be some factors we take care of on your behalf, says Dr. Sutton. She looks at me cautiously, but I think she believes my sudden flip flop on the issue. She is a bureaucrat. Tom, on the other hand, doesn't seem to be buying it. I can tell by the way he looks at his wife when she corrects my statement so matter-of-factly. Cash, rent, brain money, whatever. It's all the same in the end. I'll do it. I'm headed back to Illinois for college, so let's figure out where you'll be putting me up. That reanimate apathy you alluded to is setting in. I don't want to pull the trigger myself, but I'm less concerned about handling you. I don't want to pull the trigger myself, but I'm less concerned about handing you the gun, I say. Nice analogy, says Tom, clearly suspicious of me. Here's the catch, Eric. You can go wherever you want, but you can't go to college just yet. We can't have you associating with the general public. It's too risky for our timeline. We don't want an accidental outbreak, Dr. Sutton says. But, Dr. Sutton, what about these last 5 months? You left me here. Hasn't this been a risk? I ask. It could have been, but that's why we chose Cranston. It is small and controllable in the event of an accident. You never realized it, but Mark has been living in town, keeping his eyes and ears open for any information that would indicate our project had been compromised here. Mark made it out of the house, too, I say. Eric, what do you think happened at the fire? Tom asks. I'll tell you what I experienced. You all went running out of the room. Mark kicked me in the head. I made my way down to the second floor and realized I was trapped, so I jumped out a bedroom window. I think I fractured my leg a bit, but after a few weeks it was all right. I circled the house and only found Frank's body. The car was gone, so I assumed the rest of you had gotten away or were trapped in the house. They reported no bodies found in the charred remains of the house, not even my parents. I don't want to betray Rachel, not until I know if she has betrayed me. No report of Frank then, either, Tom asks. No, I say. He follows up with, you didn't find that suspicious? I guess I wasn't paying much attention to it at the time. I've still never even been down the road that far since. But now that we are discussing it, one of your neighbors arrived first. He and I walked around the house and we saw Frank's body. He must have reported it. I never thought about why that was never mentioned. I'm surprised I missed that one. I'm usually very observant. Frank's fingerprints registered and the CDC was contacted. Of course, we had already phoned in about the fire. Federal investigators came out and told a story about Frank being a high clearance level consultant that was visiting with Dr. Sutton from the CDC. It was sensitive information and they asked that it be left out of the local news, in the name of public safety. Sometimes it is too easy to cover our tracks, Tom says. I don't like the way Tom said that, or the way he's looking at me now, as though I'm a track about to be easily covered. He must not be buying my sudden agreement to their proposition. I can't blame him. It was a pretty weak performance on my part. I'll keep up this line of conversation for now until I figure something else out. So Mark has been watching me to make sure I don't infect anyone ahead of schedule. Is he going to follow me to my next town? And if I can't go to school, what will you have me do? I ask. Mark won't be following you. You'll be in a secure facility. We'll provide plenty for your comfort and entertainment, but you will not be able to interact socially. From what we heard about you recently, that shouldn't be a problem, Dr. Sutton says. Will the three of you be with me at the secure facility? I ask. No, we are moving on to the next town. Our overall goal is to have a launching point in 25 states. Some of the smaller states combined count as one, and the larger as two. To be accurate, it's more like 25 geographical zones. If we hadn't lost the house here, you would represent this zone. But things as they are. We'll have to find another representative. Luckily, Illinois isn't taken yet, so we can set you up there, Dr. Sutton says, apparently still unaware of my deception. If you have that many more locations to secure, and you are doing them 1 and 2 years, this project is going to take quite a while to roll out, huh? I guess when you are semi-immortal, time isn't as important anymore. That would be the case if we were the only team in operation, but remember, we have others established already, and by recruiting from our organization, which is easier than recruiting civilians, we have made great progress in 2 years. In total, there are 17 locations. We figure approximately 4 more years until we roll out the big finale, Dr. Sutton explains with flourish. Eric, you believe nearly everything you've heard, from Rachel's initial confession to everything else we've told you, even though it was completely outlandish. I have a piece of advice for you. You might find an honest vampire from time to time, maybe even a werewolf, but never trust a zombie, Tom Sutton says with a laugh. He and his wife stand up. Rachel remains seated. They start walking around the couch towards the door. Just keep on with your regular plans and get ready to move. We'll be in touch shortly, Tom says, no longer looking the part of the cowboy, but rather every bit the conniving secret operative with the trust no one approach to life and business. I don't respond. I think if I don't do something to help myself, and soon, I won't live very long. He'll be back sooner rather than later to cover his tracks. He sees right through me and my flimsy deception. Rachel finally stands up. I have to agree with my dad, Eric. You should never trust a zombie. She pulls her hand from the purse she has slung over her shoulder, and in it is a handgun. 2 well-aimed shots drop her zombie parents to the floor. They never had a chance to react. What? All right. It's chapter 18. I'm going to read chapter 19 right now, but I'll put that out next week. So stay tuned. Thanks for listening and watching, whatever. Bye.